TΑTOU KŌRERO, our stories.
Sharing our learning across the kahoiako.
Introducing Elizabeth Crisp. Elizabeth is the Associate Principal at Blockhouse Bay Primary School in Blockhouse Bay.
How did you feel on March 22nd when Jacinda put the country into a 4-week lockdown?
It was action stations. We were running around getting packs out to the kids we could. We were thrusting devices into the hands of the children who we knew didn't have any, and but overwhelming surprise in action is what I'd say.
What was your biggest challenge when you set about preparing the remote learning for your learners?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is our school's quite a large school as primary schools go. We were also really concerned to support our families really well, and so we wanted to be responsive to their needs, but in a way that was true still to our beliefs, our culture, what's important in our school, which is our learner profile here, Manuriri.
How did it work and what levels of engagement did you have?
I think it's fair to say the levels of engagement varied, and that often depended on the family's circumstances, but right at the outset we designed the learning so that it could be some of it was able to be picked up by the children and done independently, and some did need support, and there was a range of opportunity. We had some criteria. 2/3 of what we presented had to be offline, and a third could be online. The engagement, it was amazing too, but there was a huge range. There were some people, one child at home with 3 adults, and they're going, bring it on and give me more. And then we equally had some parents working full-time in stressful, crowded conditions where they were like, just let me get through and everyone happy. And so we tried to facilitate that as well.
How were the learning experiences different?
Well, we decided, number one, we had to go for engagement. And so we really upended the way we deliver things. We have, and that was quite a contrast for us. So we went along for, right from our little people through to our year 6s, we decided to have a weekly theme of inquiry. And we collaborated across teachers to present that in a highly engaging way through Google Classroom for the years 3 to 6, which we use anyway, so that was a natural thing to do. But 6 weeks in, our year 3s had barely, they were getting to grips with that, so there was a tremendous amount of learning for people there. And then in our year 1 and 2s, we decided to engage them with a weekly email, but every email had a video presented from their teacher talking about them. The children, the parents would send in then photos or videos of the children's learning back via email, and some of those snippets were then included in the next videos. So video making, and of course Zoom, became really the basis of engagement, particularly at the younger end of the school. And that was new for lots of our teachers.
Once you got back to school, what elements of what you just spoke about did you keep?
Well, that's an ongoing conversation. What we noticed, because we had a faster pace of delivery, because we had shifted from having a termly or even sometimes a line of inquiry that really went across 2 terms, we had gone for this punchy weekly change. So one week the children might be considering it was music week, another week they might have been looking at taonga, another week they I'm just pulling them out of some of the things we did, chemical reactions, things like this. it was really fresh and really new each week, and we saw engagement from some children which historically we had struggled to engage, and we felt that was really worth investigating. Our hunch was that it was worth reconsidering how we frame the big picture of curriculum delivery in our school. We had decided to continue designing the online learning just as we had at home through for the rest of the term, to give us breathing space so we could cater for the kids who were still at home and the ones coming back, whatever that looked like, however long it went. So I've got these piles of paper you can see here where we have as a staff reflected on each of the plans that we did to think if our learner profile, he manu veri, is what our community considers important, and we know that's the case because we've spent considerable time having that conversation with our community. How did we go in designing learning for that? And the evidence is that was really successful. So we are now, we've gone to the children and asked lots of them, and we've videoed their responses to say, well, what did you think was successful? What do you think we should keep? And what they say, a lot of them, is that they loved the independence they had. They loved the agency, not my word, probably not theirs, about choice, and that they could organise things they wanted, they could prioritise things that they saw. They sometimes wanted a little more time than a week. It's pretty quick to get through deep learning, but they love the connections across the curriculum, and that's something that we think is worth holding on to. So we have just decided this week, after gathering this information together, that we're going to try looking at 2 weekly inquiries. We want to keep the collaborative way of planning and teaching. We also want to keep the delivery to the children that gives them the independence. So the whole week's plan goes up on Google Classroom. The children can see exactly what it looks like. We want to shift to getting more input from them. I think it's fair to say in lockdown it was very much teacher driven. So we're starting that right now, but really it's a very interesting place to be because none of us are quite sure what the outcome is going to be, but we know it's going to be different because we've happened upon something that's pretty special, we think.
Any advice for other schools and teachers at this point of the journey and wanting to learn their own lessons from lockdown or COVID?
Well, I think the challenge is to take time to really reflect and gather information about what happened and what's worth keeping, and know that it might look different for you than it does for us, and that's fine. But I think be brave. We were faced with a circumstance in lockdown that we never saw coming. We had to adjust ourselves in the way we work hugely. And out of that, we learnt a whole lot about ourselves and our children, and we learnt different ways of working. No experience is ever wasted, in my belief, and I think it's really important not just to go back to what you always did, but actually really consider what you might be able to take into yourself personally, but also what you can bring to your practice at school, because then you benefit, the tamariki benefit, the whānau will benefit, and actually, bigger picture, our community, our world will benefit. We have an attribute we think is really important. It's called change maker. This is our opportunity to be change makers.
Would you rather read an awesome book or watch a good movie?
Read a good book.
Hey mahi tahi! Thank you so much to Elizabeth Crisp from Blockhouse Bay Primary School for sharing your learning through change.